Hey, Shalom. Gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Chakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. They just back at it again, you know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, exposing Esau Edom, through uh, through his own speech, through his AI that the Most High, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai gave him to create, and through the scriptures, most importantly. Esau Edom is being exposed through the scriptures. Like it says in Second Thessalonians. Matter of fact, I'll get that real quick. Give me 1 second. This is Second Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. But the point here is in verse 8 says, the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. And that's the prophets. When we're coming in the spirit of Yahweh Shai. This is Revelation 19 and verse 10. And I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren, which have the testimony of Yahushai. Worship the Most High, for the testimony of Yahushai is the spirit of prophecy. So we're in the spirit of Yahushai, and that spirit, who can but prophesy, to say before. We're letting you know these things are happening before they happen. So this devil being consumed by the prophets, which is the spirit of Yahushai, and ultimately he's going to be consumed by that fire that Yahushua is going to send out of his chariot. You just read 2nd Ezra 13th chapter. So this is leaving off on this chat GPT. I was asking it, questions, about the speech that Nero and his cohorts gave at Quantico last week, and so just taking off where I left off, says the prophetic connection. The psalm is not just about individual wickedness, but about a system of oppression. That's right. This is an entire system of oppression, because this is what this devil, how do you call it? This is what this devil is known as. In Isaiah the 14th chapter, it says the whole. I think that's the 14th chapter. Hammer the earth. Let me get that real quick. Salaki. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeremiah 50. Jeremiah 50 and 23. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? Now, this is speaking of modern day Babylon, mystery Babylon, what's referred to, America. It says the hammer of the whole earth. And Isaiah 14 is referring to, you made the earth to tremble. This is what that devil has done. He's had this reputation of destroying, making the nations to shake, making them quake, making them do their bidding, their will. And then also in Daniel, the 7th chapter, it says it shall wear out the saints. In Revelation, it says this whore was drunk off the blood of the saints. So this is what this whore does. It says it's a system of oppression, a nation or empire that lives in deceit, violence, and arrogance. And how do they get this land? Through deceit, destroying the people, destroying their minds, making treaties with them, breaking every treaty, killing their food sources, and then saying it was manifest destiny. It parallels Babylon in Revelation, which exalts itself, exploits the poor, sheds innocent blood, and thinks judgment will never come. And this is what you're seeing today. What you're seeing today is the final moments before judgment. Just consider if these days mirror, the times of Noah, the times of Lot when he was in Sodom. These times mirror that. Just imagine the final days. Before that destruction came, it came upon them suddenly. But the warning was constantly going out because each one of those places they had a prophet giving them warning. So, says it matches the beast power that looks like a lamb, that looks lamb-like but speaks as a dragon. And it asks her if would you like me to line this up directly with American prophecy, Daniel 7:8, Revelation 13:11, to show how Psalms 10 is describing the same spirit of oppression. Nah, it's okay, but compare it with the speech. Is what I said. It says that's a sharp connection you're asking for, and it really stands out when you place Psalms 10, chapter 5 through 11, side by side with what Trump said in Quantico speech. I'm sorry, what Nero said. Let's compare point by point. It says Psalms 10 versus Nero's speech. Psalms 10 and verse 5, his ways are always grievous, thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. It says Nero mocked internal enemies, immigrants, people in cities, and boasted that the military will straighten them out one by one. His tone was puffed up, dismissing them as enemies he could crush. And here it is, these are just really people that have already been crushed, and you just looking to grind them further into further powder. It says Psalms 10 and verse 6, he hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. Nero declared America would no longer defend foreign borders, but focus on war within. The confidence in America's powers as if untouchable and beyond adversity mirrors his arrogance. Verse 7, his mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. Speech, he accused migrants of being criminals, murderers, and lunatics without evidence. Now, how do you say, what's that phrase go? It says every accusation is a confession. Let's look that word up because I'm curious what that means. So this is just an AI overview. It says every accusation is a confession means that when someone makes an accusation against another person, it reveals something about the accuser's own character, hidden desires, or the very actions they are accusing others of. Once you're accusing the white man of being the devil, that means you're the devil. But no, that's why. Anyway, you're accusing him of racism, so that means you're racist. This phrase highlights a psychological tactic known as mirroring or projecting, where an accuser projects their own faults or intentions onto others to deflect attention from themselves or to make others appear as the wrongdoers. So here's a breakdown of the meaning. Accusation, a statement by one person asserting that another person or entity has done something wrong or improper. Confession, a statement acknowledging a hidden fact or something one would prefer to keep secret. So therefore, every accusation is a confession suggests that the accuser is unintentionally revealing their own actions, thoughts, or feelings by projecting them onto the other person. Good. So he said he accused migrants of being criminals, murderers, and lunatics without evidence. But meanwhile, there's evidence against you, Esau, Edom. Is stacked up to the heavens. The evidence is constantly coming out, and where you're having to rewrite history. to feel better about yourselves, you know. But we'll continue. Psalms 10, 8 through 9 says, He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. He lieth in wait secretly as a lion. He doth catch the poor when he draweth him into his net. The speech he spoke of using the military in U.S. cities, training grounds in Chicago, San Francisco, New York, L.A., that is lying in wait, positioning force in the very places where the poor and oppressed live, catching them in the nets of policing and surveillance. So, the scriptures are alive and speaking. This is not a fantasy book. This is not a fairy tale. This is the insight into real life. And the understanding was given to very few. And you have to be taught by teachers that Yahweh Shem Yahushai has set up. So this is Psalms 10 and verse 10. He croucheth and humbleth himself, that the poor may fall by his strong ones. It says, Nero cloaked the message in language of safety and law and order, but behind that humility is the intent to unleash military strong ones on vulnerable communities. That's right. What's your switch? What's your switch going to do against a tomahawk? This is verse 11. He hath said in his heart, the Most High hath forgotten. He hideth his face. He will never see it. It says, by framing the war from within as something righteous, he ignores Yahweh Shem Yahushua's judgment. But it's not just that. This man is the sword of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. He is meant to bring out judgment. But he is created to be crooked, perverse, all these things, but he is still the sword of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. This is how Yahweh Shem Yahushai has created him. So the mindset is we can do this without consequences because no one will stop us. So even though he's the sword of Yahweh Shem Yahushai's eye, you're touching the apple of Yahweh Shem Yahushai's eye. You're touching the Lord's elect, his chosen people. And so guess what? There's a payback for that. Prophetic parallel, Psalms 10 describes the wicked who prey on the poor innocent in secret. That prey on the poor in secret, speaking lies and fraud and boasting in pride. Nero's speech takes the same shape, outwardly lamb-like, safety, law, patriotism, inwardly dragon-like, violence, coercion, targeting the weak. Both carry the spirit of the beast in Revelation 13:11, two horns like a lamb, but speaking like a dragon. Now, you got to ask, after a while you learn, you got to ask ChatGPT a few things. You got to ask it things in certain ways. This is like, you learning how to play chess or learning strategy or whatever like that. Because, you just learn how to deal with it, especially since it gives you flattering answers a lot of the time. Like, oh, that's a great question. Things like that. So you got to learn how to, work around it. But it says, should citizens citizens be worried if there is vague terminology and enemies? Because the speech given is like he's not naming specifically black people. He's not naming specifically immigrants. He's not naming all these certain things, but he's saying it's very vague. And it's a dog whistle. You can't hear it. Or you would think, oh, that's just talking about somebody else. Oh, that's not talking about me. Meanwhile, they're talking directly about you, but it's not using direct language. It says, yes, anytime a leader uses vague, militarized language about enemies within or wars at home, ordinary citizens should pay attention and ask questions. And this was, pretty much seeing, I'm asking, a few people around to see if they, just to see where they are, see where their head's at. And they have no idea. They probably still haven't watched the speech. Just going on day by day, eating, drinking, giving into marriage. So Ordinary citizens should pay attention and ask questions. History shows that unclear labels like enemy, invader, or internal threat can easily be turned against almost any group. Now, the difference between this and the scriptures or the men of the Lord is we're directly naming you. You're not the so-called white. You are Esau Edom. You are the wicked in the scriptures. It's not vague. It's who you are. We are the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. So we're not using vague language when it comes to you. We're being direct. Here are a few reasons to stay alert but practical about it. Ambiguity allows selective targeting. When no one knows exactly who the enemy is, officials can later define it however they wish. Immigrants, protesters, journalists, or political opponents. So it can shift. A few months ago, oh, it's the immigrants. So I'm not worried about that. That's them. They're not Israelites because, they're not black. In that wrong state of thinking. Now ICE is going after, you so-called Negroes. Oh, I'm not going to worry about them. I ain't got to worry about them getting thrown into prison now or thrown in detention centers. Now, hey, thousands of them are missing from those detention centers. You don't know where they are, if they've been shipped to another country, into another country's detention center, if they're, being turned into processed foods, all kinds of things. Their organs are being taken. We have no idea what's happening. We just know they had these people, they had record of them, now they have no record of them. And the target is moved. It's no longer, them, it's going to be moving to you. So fear narratives justify extraordinary powers. Broad talk of invasion or war can be used to expand surveillance, policing, or military roles that would normally face public resistance. And this is what's happening. You're seeing with things like Palantir and group things like that are all invasive surveillance. Even what is that? Amazon coming out with facial recognition for their Ring cameras or whatever. So you're going to be tracked at every moment. And what is it? My pops, he put me on a short story by Ray Bradbury. What's it called? The Pedestrian. It's about a man, he's just walking down the street. He sees, he's walking down the street at night, and the area that he is in, like, there's TVs playing, nobody's outside, the houses are pretty much empty. He calls them tombs, and then he gets stopped by a drone. He gets arrested, but that's pretty much the story. A lot of these science fiction stories that came out in like the 50s or earlier or whatever like that where dystopian futures are like set for now. But it's like we're getting a little sidetracked. But it says ordinary people bear the cost. Historically, vague internal enemy rhetoric has led to harassment or violence against civilians who simply look or behave differently. So who's going to stand out from these Babylonians? Who's going to really stand out? Those that are keeping Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai's laws. Since democracies rely on accountability and clarity, this ain't a democracy. Healthy governments name real threats specifically, and keep civilian oversight. When rhetoric stays murky, it's a signal that citizens need to ask for transparency and legal limits. Hey, that ain't happening. And I ain't worried. Hey, what to do? Hey, repent. Turn to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Pray that Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai has mercy on you and gives you the wisdom and knowledge to survive in these times, because the world ain't gonna have it. I read here, I posted Revelation 12 and 10, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our power and the power of Hamashiach. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our power day and night. And it said that's a powerful and prophetic verse. Revelation 12 and 10 marks a turning point in the spiritual war described in that chapter. It says now, let's break it down piece by piece. Now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our power, and the power of his anointed. This declaration following the casting down of the dragon, Satan, from heaven to earth. Not which, you know what? I'm not going to deal. This is speaking of this beast system being cast down. It's not speaking of literally Satan. This is a Satan playing the part of a man or this structure that's going on right now. But you know what? This is this devil being cast down. He's the accuser. So I'm just going to jump down. Let's focus on the word accuser. It says that single word accuser in Revelation 12:10 carries a lot of weight. Here's how it unfolds linguistically and theologically. It says Greek kategoros, literally a legal accuser, prosecutor, one who brings charges in court. It's where the English word category and accuse come from. Someone standing in judgment, classifying others as guilty. So this is what Esau Edom is doing. He's putting us in a category. You're an enemy. This is what he's doing. You're an enemy. Look at what they're doing. Lord, can I have the birthright back now? Please. Look what they're doing. They're not keeping your laws. They're doing drugs. They're shooting stuff. Oh, look at them. Oh. So, and that's let's see here. The nature of the accuser, his work is not just in heaven's court, but reflected on earth. Slander, twisting truth to discredit the righteous. Condemnation, making people feel unworthy, hopeless, or eternally guilty. Division, turning brethren against one another through suspicion and blame. The accuser's strategy is always to undermine faith and unity. So this is his job, to undermine. They're crazy. Those Hebrew Israelites, they're crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. God loves everybody. Contrast with the advocate. The opposite role the opposite role belongs to the Messiah, described as our advocate, Parakletos, in 1 John 2:1. Says the accuser condemns, the advocate defends. Where the accuser uses the law to destroy, the advocate fulfills the law to redeem. So our advocate is Yahushua. He's going to defend his elect. You know what? I'm just going to come past that. This is Psalms 140 and verse 1. Deliver me, O Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, from the evil man. Preserve me from the violent man, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. They have sharpened their tongues like a serpent. Adder's poison is under their lips. Salah. Keep me, O Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from the violent man who have proposed to overthrow my goings. So that passage, Psalms 140 and verse 1, is one of David's prayers for protection from corrupt, violent rulers and conspirators. So here's what's happening line by line and how its imagery works. Deliver me, O Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, from the evil man. It says evil here means someone morally twisted or unjust. Violent can mean cruelty, oppression, or destructive power, not just physical violence, but systemic harm. So we're in that time today. David's plea is both personal and collective. Keep me safe from people who use power to crush others. Right. Which imagine mischief in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. Their minds plot harm. Mischief equals schemes. Gathered together for war shows constant agitation, always planning conflict or stirring division. This is what they're doing, constantly. Said it mirrors people or nations that live in a perpetual state of hostility, looking for enemies instead of peace. And that's what one of those devils said it. He said we're not pacifists, and then another one he said was we're going to achieve peace through war. This is what they're doing. This is how they move. This is their mindset, their mind state. They have sharpened their tongues like a serpent. Adder's poison is under their lips. Salah. The serpent imagery points to deception and deadly speech. Sharpened tongues equals is language used as a weapon. Adders poisoned or words spread destruction quietly, like venom entering a bloodstream. James 3:8 echoes this. Tongue is full of deadly poison. So this is a you seeing the mindset of them. You seeing what they're speaking. They're using vague language, but E is getting charged up by this. They're ready. Keep me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from the violent man who have proposed to overthrow my goings. The danger isn't only attack but sabotage. Plots meant to derail the path of Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai set. It's a prayer to be kept steady when deceit or coercion try to change one's course. Right. So I'm just gonna jump down. Here I had also posted Second Ezra, the 16th chapter, and starting at verse 68, it says, "For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, you Israelites." Hey, they're looking to come down on you. This is what's being stirred up. This is what that cruel Lord is stirring up. This is the spirit that's getting stirred up. For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach, and trodden under foot. For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. This is what's coming. This is destruction that's coming. This is the type of energy and chaos that's coming into this earth. This burning wrath is coming to you, Jake. Even though everybody's going to feel it, but it's going to be directed towards you. This is Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua's judgment coming on the earth. And the prophets, the men of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, are giving the warning. Since that's a powerful passage, 2 Ezra 16, verse 68 through 71, describes an end-time persecution marked by wrath, deception, and oppression against those who fear Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. Let's connect it with earlier verses and the idea that of the accuser and the violent man. So the burning wrath of a multitude, this matches Psalms 140 verse 2, where the wicked are gathered together for war. It also echoes Revelation 13, where the beast stirs nations to act under one spirit. In both, the rage isn't random, it's provoked and directed towards the righteous. Spiritual meaning, the multitude represents organized hostility, not just individuals, but systems inflamed by deception. So this is what's being stirred up, this fire. Feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols, says symbolic of forcing the faithful into compromise and dependence, physical or spiritual, ties to Revelation 13, 16, and 17, where none can buy or sell without submission to the beast's mark. That's the RFID micro C hip. This is beautiful, because this is forcing you. This entire system is forcing you to rely on this devil. You're being forced into a corner. You're being led like sheep to the slaughter. You're being forced into the slaughterhouse. You're being led gradually, and you're not paying attention. You Jake, you have no idea what's going on. You don't give a. You have no idea. You don't care. You're only concerned about the next game, whatever like that. What's next? What movie's coming out next? Hey, who cares? But this is what's happening. You're gonna be caught off guard. You people in the churches, you people that can't figure out what the MOTB is, what Revelation 13:16 is, and what it's talking about. Hey, y'all are gonna be caught off guard, and y'all are gonna take this. The idols may signify a false system of trust, loyalty, or control, misplacing the obedience to the Most High. Parallel thought, those who accept comfort and sustenance at the cost of truth consent unto them, aligning with Psalms 10 and 6, I shall not be moved, pride and complacency blind into judgment. So you're going to be, like it said also in 2 Thessalonians, you keep reading, it says that they were deceived, by the miracles that this beast could do, that this devil could do. A great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. Says this expands the idea of accusation, Revelation 12 and 10. The righteous become targets of false charges and hostility. You're going to be the face of everything bad in the earth. It's all your fault. You're preaching righteousness. It's your fault that all this bad is happening in the earth. It says insurrection implies not just political unrest, but a spiritual rebellion, the world turning on those who keep the commandments. The accuser spirit evolves into a physical persecution. The speech that begins as slander, the dragon's mouth leads to action, madmen sparing none. It says, they shall be like madmen, destroying those that fear Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. It says, corresponds to Psalms 10 and verse 9 through 10, where the wicked lie in wait to destroy the poor. Madmen reflects loss of restraint when deceitful rhetoric matures into unreasoning violence. So here the pattern says speech, accusation, wrath of the multitude, persecution of the faithful. And so, it kind of gave me a little table. But, that's pretty much it for this. This is what's coming. And destruction is coming, and even mentioned the MOTB. This is all a part of this. This is all leading to this one point. And that one point, after that, it's going to be the kingdom of heaven. You have World War III, the MOTB, this great insurrection, and the salvation of the elect of Israel, starting with 144,000. So, we're almost out of here. So with that, I'm going to say shalom.